Hello everybody, my name is Alex and welcome to another Civ 6 scenario video. Now I've done a few of these in the past, we are on episode 4 of 5 so far, and today we are looking at the second Punic War, which researching this was a ton of fun. Some of the stuff that happened in this was incredible, and turning it into a Civ 6 scenario, that would be an amazing idea, so we're going to try and do that today. So what is the context for this amazing event? Well, it was Rome versus Carthage, or as in Civ 6 they're called, the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians pretty much preceded Carthage, I think I'm right in saying. But what happened in these wars was a big part of why our world looks like it does today. If the Carthaginians had won, would Latin have been such a major part of our language? Would the Romans have had such influence on the world? No, they would not. So the second Punic War obviously followed the first Punic War. So to start with, it probably makes sense to have a look at what that was. So over 23 years, it involved over 1 million soldiers between both nations, which was absolutely enormous for the time. And at a very basic level, Rome came out victorious. They beat Carthage and they charged them with heavy war reparations. However, despite its scale, this was kind of just the warm-up event in many ways, because a lot of the stuff we remember from the Punic Wars happened next. So then, we arrive at the main event for this video, the Second Punic War. Now, since the First War, a lot has gone on. The Carthaginian general Hamilcar Barca, fair enough his son is more famous, set about rebuilding the strength of the great civilization, largely by recapturing significant holdings in the Iberian Peninsula. Now, this is important because through the tough fighting in modern-day Spain, his army became fierce both in its loyalty to the Barca family, hence why Hannibal had such a loyal, strong fighting force, but also as a well-trained fighting force. It was a very, very strong army, a very experienced army, and an army that was fierce in battle. So when Hannibal Barca, son of Hamilcar and better known just as Hannibal, invaded the trading city of Saguntum, that was under the protection of Rome in 219 BC, Rome had one hell of an opponent on its hands, and so we enter the period of the Second Punic War. Now to start with, things didn't really kick off. Instead, things sort of stagnated slightly. Hannibal took 8 months to siege out the trading city, and on the Roman side of things, they were busy fighting a war in the Balkans, so they were not facing off to Carthage. But a year later, in 218 BC, a formal declaration of war finally came when the Carthaginian Senate refused to give Hannibal over to the Romans. Rome sent an army down to Sicily to prepare for an invasion of Carthage, though this was quickly diverted back to northern Italy when some Carthaginian general did something impossible, we'll get to that in a second, and Rome sent another army off to Iberia to invade the Carthaginians' holdings in Spain. Now Hannibal, on the other hand, when war was declared, decided to take his army, including elephants, over the Alps to strike at the heart of Rome, which, let's be fair, should have been impossible, and everybody thought it was. I guess retrospectively, when looking at Hannibal's actions, the crossing of the Alps wasn't a major surprise. Obviously, we're looking at this from a long time in the future, because Hannibal, across the war, deployed some incredible tactics to win battles. He did the incredible feat of surrounding a larger army with a smaller army. Like, how do you even do that? And he was also really good at crossing terrain that armies shouldn't have been able to cross just to gain a strategic advantage. So Hannibal was an incredible general, and therefore, crossing the Alps, I mean, that was just one of many fantastic achievements. Now, the war which followed lasted just under 20 years, but it actually included some absolutely brilliant pieces of history. So the Battle of Cannae is often considered one of the greatest battles in the history of battles by military historians for centuries now. At this battle, Hannibal proved his military prowess, arguably more so than at any other battle. He did that encircling a bigger army with a smaller army thing, which is a fantastic achievement. Another part of the war which I think was worth noting was the Fabian strategy which emerged. Now this is named after the Roman dictator whom arguably saved Rome, Quintus Fabius Maximus. At Rome's lowest point in the conflict, following a number of absolutely enormous defeats, instead of giving Hannibal, the great tactician, the decisive battle he desired and knew that he could win, Fabius cautiously shadowed the Carthaginian general, knowing that Rome had to buy time to regroup, and that Hannibal in a foreign land had stretched supply lines and expensive army to pay for. Fabius forced Hannibal into a war of attrition, basically, which ultimately won Rome the war in the end. Though this tactic never really brought any glory to Fabius in the form of an absolutely great victory, the tactics ultimately did win Rome the war, and the strategy has since been used by various famous generals, including George Washington. So you can see, just in these two examples here, what an enormous impact this had on warfare at the time, and also warfare for centuries to come. But ultimately, despite the brilliant mind and a series of incredible victories by Hannibal, Carthage lost the war. With significant pressure in the home city, Hannibal was eventually recalled to North Africa, and there he was finally defeated. And 50 years later, Carthage would face ultimate defeat at the hands of the Romans too. So, yeah, Rome won, and obviously that played a major role in shaping the world we live in today. So now we've been through the history, what should a scenario of this look like in Civ 6? Well, first of all, I believe that the scenario should begin with the formal declaration of war in 218 BC. Hannibal, at the beginning of the scenario then, was yet to cross the Alps. The Roman consuls had yet to choose where to send their armies, and no major battles had yet been won or lost for either side. Instead, players playing this scenario can choose where to launch their campaigns, whether that be leading Hannibal into the mainland Italy, crossing the Alps, or leading Roman forces into campaigns in Carthaginian-held Spain to cripple them there, or maybe even to the city of Carthage itself. Wherever players choose to fight the battles, the ultimate aim of the scenario would be to basically force your opponent out of the war, one way or another, as Rome maybe capturing Carthage would be a very, very good way to achieve that. Or if playing as Carthage, maybe, even though Hannibal himself didn't go for this in real life, maybe capturing Rome is the only way to really knock out Rome, because they would not surrender, even after all the great victories of Hannibal. Rome just wouldn't give up. Ultimately, whatever has to be done in the scenario, the other power must be crushed, or both civs would lose the game. Before we go into my favourite bit of the video, the cool little ideas and details and mechanics that could make up this scenario, I just want to say a massive thank you to every single one of you who voted to see this scenario in the next video. To have your say in the fifth and final scenario and what you want me to cover, be sure to vote on the next poll and stay tuned to see if your choice wins. Also, please do give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying it. It takes quite a bit of time to put them together, but it's always nice to see that people are enjoying and people are engaging. So now for the creative bit and what I think would make this scenario really good, the details and mechanics. So first of all, there should be absolutely fantastic units. So Hannibal's elephants, I would love to use them in a battle versus the legendary Roman legions, the well-organised Roman legions, the Roman legions which are superior in number. Facing them off against each other, and obviously the Carthaginian cavalry, stuff like that, the unique units in the scenario would be so fun to play as. The second thing is the unique generals, Hannibal versus Scipio, the Roman consuls and their armies. All of that stuff I find historically fascinating. There are so many figures which stand out when you actually do proper research on this. They would make brilliant generals to play as in the game, so I'd love to see them in there, and I think players and historical fans especially would enjoy that as well. When recruiting armies, I think that both sides should be able to recruit mercenaries quick to bolster their armies. During the Punic Wars, mercenaries from across Europe played a pivotal role for both sides, and it would allow for consistent large-scale conflicts throughout the scenario, because this scenario should be epic on scale. As another little side mechanic, you should also be able to bribe the opposition mercenaries too, with special envoy units that go, get in people's ears, come and fight for us maybe, we'll pay you extra. So that would be really cool to be able to bribe enemy mercenaries, because as we know, mercenaries tend to be less loyal than kind of troops from the homeland. Also, the last thing you want is for your army to defect just when you're about to fight a major battle, especially if you get really unlucky and they join the opposition's ranks. Another thing I want to mention is that Hannibal should forfeit movement penalties, and also that he can stack units on multiple tiles. Now, I know we've not had unit stacking in Civ 6, but I feel like if you're going to try and move an army through the Alps, you're probably going to have to stack them. So I think Hannibal should have that ability, maybe to stack 2 or 3 units on a tile. That would allow him to move units through difficult terrain fast, which was a staple of his strategy. The final little dynamic I want to mention is that of seasons. Now, In warfare, especially at this time in history, seasons played a massive role. You couldn't really go to war in winter, and obviously your troops would take more attrition in winter. I think a little mechanic like that, the changing of the seasons, units taking damage in winter, stuff like that would work really well. You could even bring supply lines in here as well. I mentioned that in my American War of Independence video, I think so. Supply lines, seasons, all that stuff to keep an army fresh and maintained. I think those would work well in this scenario too. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Be sure to let me know what you think a second Punic War scenario should look like and include. Let me know that down in the comments. Also remember to hit the like button on this video, share it with a friend, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more, and obviously vote on the poll to see what comes next. Thank you for watching, my name is Alex, and I will see you in another video soon.